The atom, as you have known it today, everything that we know about the atom today, all this knowledge has been built up on by from early discoveries of on elements and atoms of early scientists, right? Early scientists that they started the work on this, and then progressively things have been there, research upon research, research upon research, and then we have modern structure or modern form or modern knowledge about the atom which we use in our daily life today. Um, so among them, there have been many, right? Among them, we have people like John Dalton, J.J. Thompson, and there's Rutherford, um, James Chadwick, and Bost. They all contributed to the structure of the atom that we have today. But then we need to start systematically, starting from the very first person, which is John Dalton. So John Dalton is a very popular scientist when it comes to chemistry, and you need to understand that um, the very first person that actually gave the idea about the atom, calling it atomos, was Democritus. Democritus was the very first person that gave the idea that when you have something and you use knife and you cut it in very small, small pieces, you cut it in very, very small pieces, you'll be cutting it until you get to a point that there will be a smallest piece that you can never cut again. No matter what you do, you can never try. So you can be cutting the thing small, small. Whenever you cut it, take the smaller piece, you cut it again, you cut it again. You reach a point where you cannot cut that particular thing again. So at that point, that particular piece that you cannot cut again, we call it indivisible. Basically, that's what he gave us in the Greek word meaning atomos, meaning indivisible. We cannot destroy it. We cannot divide it any further again. That's the distance. And those are it's the combination of those things that make up the bulk of the thing, of the bigger thing. So we call it atomos, right? Um, but then John Dalton also came with his theory. His theory. He did not perform any experiment on this thing. He gave a theory, and then based on his theory, right, he has come up with something, and then which have been adopted as, as by any scientists, right, to make uh, deductions. But then always scientists are always curious. They begin to make improvement. But let's look at John Dalton, what he has to say. So these are the components of his postulates. We are going to call them the postulates of John Dalton. So John Dalton had these postulates, and these are the things that he said. One, elements are made up of small indivisible particles called atoms. That's his first point. He said that elements, as we learned earlier, we said that elements contain atoms. So he's saying that elements are made up of small indivisible particles called atoms. What is he saying about these atoms? Second, atoms can either be created or destroyed. He said these atoms can either be created or destroyed. That is the second point. Because the third one is atoms of the same element have the same mass and size. So if atoms belong to the same element, then they have the same mass and size. That's what he said. The fourth one is atoms of different elements have different mass and size. So if the atoms are from different elements, then the mass and size are going to be different. But if they belong to the same element, then they're going to have the same size and mass. That's what he said. The next one, the last one, is atoms combine to form compounds. These atoms combine to form compounds, and they do that combination in a simple whole number ratio. These are the things that we said, and by any scientists, and they adopted it, and the research has been done, right? And then among everything that he said, after all the study up to today, three of these postulates are things that have been rejected. There are three of the things that he has said. Among the five, there are three that have been rejected, right, in our modern world now. So these three ones are going at this, the number one up to three. They have all been disproved. So further research, after we said that, further research have proved and experiments have shown that these three are not really true. So now let's look at how these are not, what shows that these three elements, these first 3 points are not true. Again, the 3 points are elements are made up of small individual particles called atoms. Two, atoms can either be created or destroyed. That's what he said. And these atoms of the same element have the same mass and size. That's what we have said. Let's look at what is wrong. Now, the first point where he said that elements are made up of small individual particles called atoms are disproved. Why? Because studies have shown that what atoms contain smaller particles. So even those atoms that they say you cannot divide again, further studies have shown that these atoms that he's talking about, right? These atoms, right, they exist, but then these atoms are not the smallest particle. These atoms contain other particles called electrons, protons, and neutrons. We look at them already. So if you say atoms are made of some indivisible particle, indivisible meaning you cannot divide them again, then you see that it has been disproved now, because we now see that the atoms further contain electrons, protons, and electrons, which are fundamental particles again in that particular atom that we were referring to. So for that reason, that particular postulate has been disproved, and then we are no more following that. The next one is atom. He said atoms can neither be created nor destroyed. That particular statement is also false today. Because today's world, we have discovered that we can form atom, or we can break down atom through radioactivity. If you use the reactive reactions, you'll be able to destroy or form new electrons from older ones. So you break one to form a new one. You break one atom to form a new one, which is a clear example, clear evidence that this particular statement by John Dalton in the early days is disproved. The third point that I said is atoms of the same element have equal mass and size. Before this session, we have already covered isotopes and all that, right? We said isotopes are atoms of the same element that have the same proton number but different mass number. This is the difference in the neutrons, right? So John Dalton is telling us that atoms of the same element have equal mass and size. The fact that they are of the same element doesn't mean that they will have the same mass, right? Because today we have discovered through isotopes, these are atoms of the same element, all right, but they have different mass numbers. So the mass numbers are different, but they all belong to the same element. So atoms of the same element have equal mass and size is very, very disproved or false now today. So by those days, it's a statement that has been accepted, but then they began to make research, and today we have evolved and we understood that atoms of the same element are isotopes, which may have different masses. So that particular statement is also false, right? So now today we know about John Dalton, what he has said, the 5 statements that he has made, and then the first 3 we say that they are wrong, they are disproved, right? And we give the reasons why they have been disproved. Yes, so we go back and state this. The first 3 are disproved, and we have to know the reason for each of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 4 and 5 are very, so atoms combine a definite ratio. We see that in compounds, and then atoms of different elements have different mass and size. That's very, very, mass and size. I think there shouldn't be any S over here. Mass and size. So, very, very clear, very clear. You see that if you have different atoms in different masses, that's possible. Different sizes, that's possible. But then the first 3 have been disproved, and then we have the evidence backing that. Next, let's see the scientists that follow up and what has that scientists done to disprove each of these various elements. The next person has done experiment. John Dalton, looks like he has not done experiment. He's just bringing theory, and the elements of his theory called them postulates. So John Dalton put all the postulates of John Dalton, postulates of his theory, are these 5 elements, and the very first 3 are wrong. Let's keep that in mind and know the reason why they are wrong before we move on to the next scientist, who is J.J. Thomson.